I'm gonna cut all of these existing leaves off. They are pissing me off so much. Oh, nice. This is better than therapy. Oh, hello. Now, this specimen in particular has seen much better days. But in today's video, we're getting on top of it. That's what we're gonna do. I wanna give crawling Philodendron one last chance before I completely give up on them. And well, this is the plant to try it with. I want to give it a fundamental refresh, do something with it and see if I can grow it nicely again, because I was able to grow it nicely until it kind of grew a little bit too large, and then with the size of the plant I wasn't able to really put it in a spot that will suit it, and then it slowly started deteriorating. Actually, I started a video for this plant I think a year and a half ago by now, but the video never really eventuated because the plant didn't really do much. So let me repurpose that footage so I can finally use it somewhere. It's been sitting on that drive for years now. So let's just have a look at what happened back then. In today's video, we need to get on top of this. And I might have left it for a little too long, but that's okay, nothing we can't fix today. Alrighty, this is Philodendron plowmanii, by the way. I believe it is the narrow form. And let me show you the back. It has beautiful kind of pinkish back sides and nice ruffled petioles. I really like this plant. It's probably my favorite crawling Philodendron because it has quite short internodal spacing. So I suppose you could see this over here, how the plant has been growing in this pot for over a year and it still hasn't reached the end of it. If I compare that to like my Dean or a Pasta or even a Gloriosum, they seem to have larger internodal spacing, so the space between each leaf, so it crawls faster, whereas this one hasn't even reached the edge of its pod, but it's just really root bound. Brett is roaming around somewhere as well, so please keep an eye on him for me. But I just really desperately need to give this a bigger pod or propagated, or something needs to happen. Now, let me give you a little bit of, how am I going to do this even? I can't really put it down, can I? Let me give you a little bit of background. Oh my god. Literally 5 birds just landed on my fence over there. They keep shitting on my new couch. Bradley, you can't catch them, they can fly, my baby. When I first got this plant, and it's probably like a year and a half ago, I actually wanted to try and make this climb up a moss pole, because I've been asked that question so many times. Can you make a crawling Philodendron climb up a moss pole? So I wanted to try it. I mean, I always think trying to grow the plant in line with its natural growth habit is going to give you the best results for sure, but it's worth a shot, right? So I gave it a try, but I'll insert this little clip on the right for you. You can really see that the plant just wanted to grow horizontally. So that spot where it started attaching to the moss pole, that's how it came. And then in my care, it really just grew horizontal along the moss pole instead of vertically up the moss pole, which kind of defeats the purpose, right? So very clear to me that this plant does not want to climb, so I gave it a horizontal pot. Oh my god, look at this. That one is from Amazon, by the way, and look at the roots. Good roots, huh? If I find the link again, I'll pop it in there. It's been a while since I bought them. Anyway, these horizontal pods technically have self-watering capabilities or capacities, but I don't really use it that way. I still water from the top. The excess water is going to drain through and just accumulate in that bottom catch pot, you know, cage pot. So I'm not really risking over-watering because the excess water can drain and the pot in itself doesn't sit in it. But what that does is roots are attracted to moisture, so roots start being attracted to the water that accumulates at the bottom and grow out of here, which You know, the more roots the better, but it's gonna be a problem right now because I don't think I can get these roots through the holes that they grew through in the first place. But let's just get rid of a little bit more medium. Oh my god, this is... Oh shit, oh no, I just did a bit of damage to that newest leaf over here. Sorry, leaf. Okay, I might just need to stop being gentle. Oh my god, it's so rhubarb. I think the best way is honestly just to try. And right, the ones that grew through like the side holes are fine. I think the ones that grew through the bottom will not be so fine. Okay, as you can see, not all roots made it. That's okay. I think it had plenty of roots to start off with. Now, the substrate in itself seems full of roots as well, but it still looks okay. But I wanna thoroughly repot this, give it a new substrate. Now, when it comes to my crawling Philos, I usually make the substrate a little more water retentive because they're crawling. So in nature, they crawl along the forest floor, which obviously retain more moisture than a climbing aeroid that's climbing up the bark of a tree, right? Hang on, let me go in the dirty bit and shake it. Let me just quickly park it here and I clean up a little bit. Alrighty, so this is what we've got. Some decent roots. Whatever. I have 3 options for pots. I can put it up in same size pot again. Obviously I would have to chop it for that. So let's say, for example, I only keep the last 3 leaves or so and I repot them in here because it really liked this pot, right? Option number 2 is this pot that's slightly bigger but not as good looking. Option number 3 is this quite large pot over here. Let me have a look. Did you see that? Brettles, you're a superstar. You should go to the circus. I reckon I'll go with this one, huh? It's huge though. It's gonna take up a lot of space. I think I'll go for it for now, but if I notice eventually that it's too much, I might add a second plant in here or something like that. You know, just to fill out the pot, maximize space. Okay, sorry plant, I should really, I need like a designated plant holder. Alright, so I just put a layer of fresh aeroid mix in here, just mixed that up earlier. And I think I underestimated how much potting mix this huge pot can take. So I've been asked quite frequently when I repot crawlers, like which side of the pot do I choose? How do I know which side the pot is gonna, which side the plant is gonna crawl towards and so on. So I'm just gonna put it this way so that the plant can crawl this way, and I'll just need to make sure that the light source comes from here, and then that will signalize to the plant, hey, crawl this way. And now I'll just top it up with aeroid mix. Now, technically the stem wants to kind of hover on the surface, but that also makes it kind of unstable, so I don't mind potting it up a little bit. Let me top it up and then I'll show you a bit closer what I mean. Wow, this takes so much potting mix. This newest leaf is not happy. I think I bashed it around a bit too much. Alright, let me bring you closer. Alright, so you can see this is the stem. And just for now, I kind of covered it with substrate. Buried it inside the pot a little deeper. Just so it has stability and it doesn't rock back and forth. But eventually the new growth will just kind of crawl along the pot, not really into the pot. But this just gives it a bit more stability for now. So of course every time you repot a plant, it will now have to get used to its new thing. So you're introducing a little bit of stress, and that's okay. The plant will be fine. Now, what I like about this pot is that you can take it out of its little tray and you can water it thoroughly. And in this water I've got my regular GT Foliage Focus and some GT Root Zone, which really is gonna help the roots spread again. So thoroughly water it. I need more. I want the mix to be thoroughly moist, but also thoroughly watering it flushes oxygen through the mix, and roots love oxygen. Now while I've got it out here, let me just clean the leaves as well. You can see there was previous spider mite damage over here, the yellow bits. Alrighty, the plant is just right behind me over here. I'll let that dry in for about 30 minutes and I'll pop it back into my office. Now the plant straight away kind of started being a little limp. That's because I just introduced a whole lot of shock. So I'll give the plant a couple of days and then I'm sure it will be just fine, and I suppose I'll show you. Alrighty, and we're back. It's been about 2 weeks that I repotted my plowmanii, and it was honestly so sad for the first week. Let me show it to you. It is right here. Oh my god, you totally cannot see that, I think. It honestly, for the first week, all of these leaves were so droopy. Like specifically the newest leaf over here, this one was actually hanging on the floor. But I didn't do anything. Normally, you know, when the plants look droopy, it can be a sign that it needs water. But in that instance, I knew it wasn't because it needed water. It was because the roots just went through a whole lot of shock and couldn't really absorb the water. I then watered it a week after I repotted it, and it then really slowly started recovering and, you know, perking up a little bit again. The existing leaves are definitely getting a little sad. What I might do is I might just pop a stake in here and kind of just prop them all up so they look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. But for now, I'm expecting the plant to focus on re-establishing a root system. A lot of the root system was kind of like destroyed or injured, let's say, as a result of me having to rip it out of this pot that was so root bound. If I would have wanted to reduce the shock, I should have really repotted it a little bit earlier. But I think at this stage the repot was successful. I just need to give the plant a little bit more time. I'm also expecting that these older leaves over here, for example, will deteriorate really quickly because the plant is just going to take all of that energy, and instead of trying to keep that energy, instead of using the energy to sustain these leaves or support these leaves, it's probably going to take that energy back into building a root system. So let's maybe check in again in like a month or so, or when I see new growth, because then I can guarantee that this was a success. Alrighty, and my baby wants some attention, so I'll wrap it up now. And we're back. A lot has happened since the last update. I moved house, so did my plants, but so far I can't really see all too much shock as a result of the move. But I kind of forgot to give you updates on this plant. What happened in the meantime is business as usual. The plant dropped a couple of leaves at the back, but that's okay. As long as it's always the oldest leaves that the plant drops or aborts, or I suppose the plant didn't drop the leaf. They were just getting a little ugly and beaten, and I was like, nope, can't be asked to look at them. Specifically since the plant spreads so far. I was actually also attempting to put a stake in here and tie them all together, but I don't really need to. The plant kind of recovered by itself. Now, what really helped with these leaves perking up rather than spreading so far out like you've seen in the last video was that I put it in my greenhouse. In my greenhouse, the light comes from above. So obviously these leaves will face the light, and I think that's why I'm achieving this more compact look without actually having to tie it up anymore. Now this is the newest leaf, and I'm pretty sure it grew these two leaves since the repot, or I think this was the leaf that was damaged in the repot, so this is its first new leaf since the repot. Beautiful. Not really fast, right? But beautiful. And I'll show you close up in a sec, but also a new leaf is pushing out here right now, and it has a big inflow coming here as well. But I do not want it to waste energy on inflows, so I keep snapping these off. I just had really bad experiences with my Adansonii. It had, I think, 6 or 8 inflows, and I was kind of curious to see what they look like and if they have a smell and so on, so I actually let the plant grow all of them, and then after that the new growth was teeny tiny, not happy. So I don't want the plant to focus on flowers. Now let me show you something close up. The one thing I really love about this plant are these ruffled petioles. Can you see this? This is so cool, and a nice pink back. Yeah, I really like that this plant crawls so slowly. It's only halfway along its pot, and it grows with really small internodal spacing, so I reckon I'll get another 10 to 12 leaves out of this particular pot. It's probably going to be root bound before it runs out of space in the actual pot. So that's great. The pot in itself was from Bunnings, by the way, but I remember it being pretty expensive. And can you see these mozzies everywhere? Today I need to get on top of the mozzie situation in the garden. Alright, so what have we learned from this is that yes, sometimes a repot also results in damaging some roots. Damaging some roots as part of a repot isn't necessarily a guaranteed death sentence for the plant. You just need to be extra careful and ideally provide the plant with perfect conditions as a result of the additional stress the plant can't really cope with many other factors that are going wrong. So if you have a greenhouse or something like that, or even if your plant is small enough and you can still fit it in a prop box, that would be ideal. Focus on re-establishing root health. So be very diligent with the watering. By diligent, I don't mean frequent. I mean just really water it when required. These plants, specifically the crawlers, I do not want them to dry out because they crawl on the forest floor, and the forest floor in tropical climates are less likely to dry out than like a plant that grows, somewhere up a tree. I've been pretty diligent with this plant and didn't let it dry out because I don't want the roots to go through any further shock. Let me actually check if there's any. I can select one root. And apart from that, just be patient. Just because the plant looks droopy right after the repot does not mean that this is an automated failure. It could just be that the plant needs a little bit of time to recover from all of that shock. If the plant aborts a couple of older leaves as part of this process, that is also perfectly normal. The plant wants to survive, and hanging on to dead wood at the back, it's just going to make the plant's chances of surviving worse. So the plant is just going to focus on its core part. Once the plant has re-established a healthy root system, new growth will come. That's what the plant wants to do. The plant wants to grow. The plant wants to do one thing: grow. And that's exactly what I want the plant to do as well. So our interests are aligned. Oh, looks so empty without you in there. Come on. I'll put you back. So it was growing really well in a smaller pot, and then I wanted more out of this plant and gave it a larger pot, and it was actually a bit scary initially, right after the repot. Not scary. In the grand scheme of things, nothing to do with plants is that scary, right? But initially it got really, really droopy and I was like, oh my god, I messed up. I was too harsh with the repot. But it actually managed to recover really well. But with the larger pot and then eventually some larger leaves, it just took up so much space that, especially when I moved into my current house over here, and I'm not very blessed with a lot of natural light indoors, it had to move into the greenhouse, where it was initially thriving. Eventually it grew way too large for the greenhouse. It almost took up one entire wall. The greenhouse is actually very tiny in the grand scheme of things, so I had to move it out of there because it was just getting tangled up with everything. It was getting too large. It had a lot of water sitting on it because of the misters and so on. It just didn't suit it. So I moved it outside and I think it got a little bit too much sun. Look, by the time I moved it outside, I was already kind of pretty pissed off with this plant, right? So basically, over the last year and a half, it's just gone worse and worse and worse. And I hate that. It still takes up space, but it's taking up space while deteriorating. I'd rather use that space for a plant that actually has the desire to live in my environment and a plant that I enjoy looking after, but I also don't want to like purposely kill it, you know what I mean? So I'm giving it one last shot, but I'm doing a fundamental setback because I actually appreciate this plant being more juvenile. Let me start doing things while I talk to you. I'm gonna cut all of these existing leaves off. They are pissing me off so much. Oh, nice. This is better than therapy. Honestly, to me, cutting off ugly leaves is like the best. Now I can bring you a bit closer as well. What I have done in preparation for this video, I cut it in a few spots, which you now can't see and I can't point out because I'm holding it with both hands and it's leaking water. But as a result of that, you see this reshoot that's coming out here, going kind of against the direction of the pot, and it's even, this one I'm touching with my nose, flowering. Why? Nobody asked for that. When I was in Brisbane and I went to the Botanic Gardens Mount Coot-tha, which you probably all watched, didn't you? They had some really nice plowmanii as an understory, and I much preferred the smaller version of them than the larger ones. Not saying that they're different types, they're just some are juvenile, some are mature. But I'm having a hard time keeping things juvenile while still making them grow. Like usually if I give them shitty conditions, then they just don't grow. If they give them great conditions, then they kind of mature. I don't know, I've had this issue with a few plants. Anyway, for now I'm gonna cut off any of the inflows because we definitely don't need that in our life at this stage. Let's take this out of here, come on. Let's see how big the root system is, because the root system is going to determine what sort of pot I need to choose, but I would like to choose a... Oh my god, I saw a worm. I know they're good for their root health, but is it going to touch me? Ah, there's a shoot here, by the way. What am I gonna do now with the worm? Okay. Step number one, stop crying. Okay. So, now you can see that a little bit better, how I cut these bits. You know, I cut a whole lot of cuttings recently in preparation for this. So basically it should... Let me bring you a bit closer once I separated out all the cuttings. But it's the same principle that I use on my moss poles. Just on my moss poles, all of the stem is going vertically, and then I cut it into single bits, and then each of them turns into a little plant. You can do the same thing with crawlers. Just, oh my god, is this? Oh, that's part of the stem. Just horizontally, right? You cut it, and then they can all reshoot. Very good, healthy roots. So there should be plenty of potential in regrowing this really nice and lush. And I think that's probably the goal. Instead of having one long trailing philodendron, because the leaves don't last that long, or they don't look that nice for that long, I reckon I'd rather try and have a few
lush cuttings instead. Now there's nothing wrong with this medium and I could definitely reuse it. I just don't want to reuse it for this particular plant. It's more a mix I want to reuse when potting up plants outdoors. Like a palm, for example, could easily use all of this substrate. Okay. So this is the top cutting, the main cutting that I've got. Got some really nice roots here, which I'll show you in a sec. And I actually think I will be able to cut this again. I don't think there was anything wrong with the mix or my care approach, I think, in itself. I think what really did this plant dirty was the conditions when I put it outside. Good roots, right? Lots of them. And then this is the main cutting. Now you can see that this is the reshoot from the border, the existing growth point, and this is the reshoot. And it has reshot in a couple of spots. So this is a shoot and this is a shoot. So that's actually really good. And you can also see that the new part has all of these beautiful pinkish roots. So I think I want to separate that. Well, yes, the more roots the better. I don't want this to mature again. So I'm going to separate out this reshoot part. Oh no! Oopsie, cut this root in half, didn't I? I still think this is a good root system in proportion to the cutting. Plus it has all of these fresh roots over here. They're still really keen to expand and keep growing, right? And then I have this monstrous thing. You can see one reshoot here. You know what? I'll pop that in the garden, like in the garden bed. Because why not? I just need to find a spot where. But for now I'll park it on the side. And then let me show you these bits that I've got. So I've got a cutting here with a shoot. I've got a cutting here that actually already has a new leaf unfurling. This was the original stem. There's actually a shoot here as well. So I might cut this. Here we go. So I've got this one with a little shoot and I've got this one actually with two shoots. There's one shoot here as well. And another thick cutting with two new shoots here. Happy days. Alrighty, let's focus on the main shoot first. I definitely want this to go into this smaller planter. I've had best success with crawlers in there. And I also think, you know, keeping it slightly root bound is gonna maybe stop it from maturing so fast. I will put it on this side of the planter so it can crawl this way. And top it up with airwood mix. And this airwood mix is like my normal airwood mix. Nice and chunky, but because this is not a moss pole, and in nature they would crawl on the forest floor, so it would usually be a little more moist than an epiphyte. I added a bunch of worm castings in here so that it has good water retention and it's a bit more of a heavy organic mix rather than being super chunky. I'll just put a few other cuttings in here, just hoping they might eventuate and give me another second or third shoot. I will also put this one in here actually. Why does it already have so many roots? Does it really need all of them? I never trim roots, but I feel inclined to do that today. Kind of counterproductive. I usually like as many roots as possible, but I really want to keep this plant small. So maybe introducing a few setbacks isn't the worst thing. This one I'll actually do the other way around, so it maybe crawls the other way, but they will also crawl towards the light or away from the light if you give it too much. Anyway, we'll find out. You can tell I'm clearly not all too emotionally attached to this plant anymore. There we go. Ah, it already looks better in my opinion. Oh, hang on, there was another one that I want to pop in the garden. There's 3. Holy moly. Hang on. I can't put 3 in the garden, that's too much. Maybe I'll put the big one just in a normal pot. Just, I don't know why. I just don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't have a plan. And I feel like we don't have to have a plan. We can just do things. The way I do it, I take the crawler that I want to pot up and I kind of hold it in place, and then I just shake the pot around it so that all of the substrate goes in between the root system and holds it in place. Now, technically, the stem should be exposed, kind of hovering on the surface of the potting medium, but that's just going to give it no stability. So I am kind of covering it moistly. Like, it's hard to see because the stem is so brown. You can see the stem here, but it's kind of mainly covered, right? Not fully, but kind of mainly. Otherwise, it will just flop over, no? I reckon I'll do one at the corner here and one there. Oh, hello. Mwah. Hello. I do that surprisingly often, and then I forget about them, and then like the year later I'm like, oh my god, look at this reshoot. Rude. Okay, I'm over this mess, but I've repotted those two. Now we just gotta wait. I really hope this plant is gonna sort itself out, because at this stage I'm pretty mad at it, right? Nah, we'll find out. I will definitely put it in a spot that is a little bit shadier than the one was before. Actually, I think this one I'll pop in the greenhouse, because it doesn't take up much space, and maybe I should pop this one inside. Yeah, I think this one I'll put back inside. Stick to what I actually know. Good old growing indoors. It will definitely give you the best chances of looking nice, because there's no wind, sun, animals, rain, hail, whatnot to kind of make it look shitty. I'll do that. Obviously water it first, but I need to get rid of this mess. Making me really uneasy. We'll see each other soon. Bye. Super quick update, 2 new leaves, and I think they are so beautiful. Especially the back as well. Look at these ruffles, huh? So I'm actually really enjoying this plant right now, and I honestly am happy with the amount of leaves that it has as well. I mean, these two are still a bit manky, right? Like the original ones after it reshot. There's actually a third little shoot coming out here. But yeah, overall, I think I'm happy. If this plant just wants to give me 2 or 3 nice leaves at any given time, I'm really happy with that. Now let's have a look at the root system. I actually have not looked at it. I have not taken it out in a month. Oh, roots already poking through. Ah well, that's good news. It means it's happy. But even if this is root bound, it's not going to get a larger pot than this, right? That's what I said I'm gonna do, so I'm really gonna try and do that. Sometimes like my ambition of trying to mature it takes over. This one is the little other propagation I put in the greenhouse, has given me this cute little leaf, and now pushing out the next one. So that's also really good, and nothing from the ones I put in the garden. Anyway, I think we're going places with this plant, and the place is not maturity, which is so unusual for me, but let's keep following this plant for a little longer. And here we are. It has been almost 5 months, 4.5 or something like that, since the last update. And as you can see, kind of nothing happened. If anything, the plant is actually smaller now than it was before. It actually has nice leaves, but it's kind of unfortunate. Half of them point this way, the other half points this way. Even though I don't think I changed the position of light for this plant, unless I by accident changed it around at some stage. I'm pretty certain that the light comes from this direction, so you're the light, and it's just in a south-facing window at the moment. South is the worst exposure in the southern hemisphere, and at the same time, these were the 5 shortest months of the year. So it's really not getting a lot of light, which I assume leads to these more juvenile leaves. This is the newest one. I mean, look at this. This is the first leaf that it has. Then after that it grew this leaf with a super long petiole, which I don't like. But that next one over here seems to be quite good. So I don't know. I don't know what that means, because I haven't changed the position for this plant in those 5 months. But hopefully it can grow a few more like this. And
I think with these juvenile leaves, you can actually see all of its beautiful features so much better. The ruffled petioles, the pink veining in the back, and then the front of the leaves looks so much better as well. And the silver is still more prominent. Huh? Same over here. Look at this new leaf unfurling over here. I mean, this is super, super beautiful. Look at the pink at the back over here. And I suppose this is exactly what I wanted this plant to do. So it is so weird to me because the plant is technically getting smaller and smaller and smaller as we're progressing in this video, but it is kind of exactly what I want. So very opposite to what I normally aim for. And I think that's probably why this video was a little bit chaotic as well. The intention behind this video was never to make the plant grow smaller again. I initially started this project 2 years ago because I actually wanted to grow my plowmanii really, really big, because that's usually what I do with all of my plants. But it's also important to pivot in between. If you realize that something that you're aiming for isn't working out, and or you realize that, hang on, I was kind of aiming for the wrong thing, then there's nothing wrong with changing your approach and acting accordingly. Chances are that I might replicate this journey with a few other plants in my collection as well. I do love to grow my plants to maturity at least once, so I see what the plant looks like when it's mature, and to kind of prove to myself that I can do it. But it doesn't mean that I then want to grow a mature version of that plant for the rest of its life, or the rest of my life, or in perpetuity, however long it might stay in my collection for. Once I've proven it to myself, I then get to choose what I want to do with this plant. And in this instance, I have chosen that I think I prefer the juvenile look of this plant. Now, to achieve that juvenile look, I'm mainly doing two things. As I mentioned, it's in a south-facing window, which is significantly less light than it received in my greenhouse, for example, right? So less light means the plant should grow less, but it also could mean that the plant just grows a little leggier. Yes, my baby. And the second thing that I do is I will just stunt it in this pot. As we can see, there are a few roots sticking out of this pot yet again. I watered this yesterday, so there's a bit of water accumulating, so that's why it looks a little bit wet. Not a concern. I will just never upgrade this pot. If it becomes root bound, all I'm going to do is I will take it out, separate out. I mean, right now there's still 3 cuttings in here. I will take it out, separate out a few cuttings, and put it back in here just with less cuttings, right? So I'll just reduce the amount of plant that I put in the pot instead of just continuously giving it a bigger pot. Yes, my darling, it is another 2 hours till dinner time. How do you feel about that? Not good? Okay, I'm sorry. Just because I'm keeping it juvenile does not mean that it's kind of any less work, to be honest. It is still a spider mite magnet. However, at this stage, once the older leaves start having spider mites, they actually also started looking a little bit bad, and they kind of like didn't keep the shape. They're kind of like flopping in a little bit. I didn't even bother treating the plant for spider mites. I just chopped off that leaf. I sprayed everything else with water, but I haven't really bothered going in with my killer mite. I just figured, you know, I'll just cut the infected leaf off and hope for the best. So just because it's small and juvenile and I'm not aiming for massive growth doesn't mean that it's any less of a pest magnet. And so that is still something to keep in mind, and that has always been one of the biggest issues with crawlers for me. It is still the only crawler in my collection potted. I do still have a Dean McDowell and a pastor in my garden bed, and I have no desire to change anything about that, so it will stay in my garden bed for sure. But this one I actually really like, and I'm excited to see how this plant grows over the next few months, years, specifically over spring, if it's giving me any decent growth or not, if spring is going to make it mature or if it's going to stay juvenile. If it wants to mature, I might just have to go in and cut in between the stem to get it to reshoot more juvenile again, and so on. If you want to create a nice looking display and you want to keep a plant a certain way, then you have to be actively involved. You have to be strategic with your light source, you have to be strategic with your pot, with your repots, maybe with your propagations, to keep it looking a certain way. If you let the plant do its own thing, it's just going to grow one really leggy stem. The plant couldn't care less about the way that it looks looks in this pot. The plant just wants to survive, right? So if you want an aesthetically pleasing display, obviously depends on what aesthetics you're aiming for, but I like a neat-ish display. I don't necessarily want it to look like it is a crazy mess. So because I'm a little bit of a neat freak, I still have to be actively involved. So it is not any less effort, it's just a different type of effort that I'm applying. I could also, for example, add a stake and then, you know, maybe tie this leaf to it to kind of create a more compact display, but at this stage I'm just letting it do its own thing. And I think the main learning over here is that, you know what, not every plant actually looks good when mature. It's not desirable to maybe grow every plant to maturity and keep it that way. And that's also okay. And I do think there's a few plants that fall into this bracket, and maybe I should do a video on plants that look better juvenile than mature, because I have some opinions. So let me know in the comments down below if you would love for me to make a video like that. Also give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye!